Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm joined by Ed de la Fuente, who's also known as the Itinerant Fan through his website, newsletter, and social media. Ed works in sports media. He's been doing that for quite a while with Fox Sports, ESPN, and other outlets. I met Ed at the recent TravelCon event in Portland, and I wanted to get him on the show to talk about sports and travel. Ed loves to combine both, so we're going to talk about his sporting life, travel life, some favourite cities that he likes going to, his stadiums, some of his favourite sports teams, travel destinations, events, and how maybe he can help you plan an event, and maybe some predictions for some upcoming seasons and events in the sporting calendar. Ed, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Great. Thanks, James, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on.
Bit of a ropey intro there, so I have to take some out. But where are you based right now?
I'm in Los Angeles. I wasn't born here, but I grew up here. Moved away for a little bit, and then came back. And now that I'm back, I probably won't ever leave. So yeah, pretty strongly identify with LA,
And where were you born originally?
Chicago.
Oh,
But I moved away. My family moved away when I was 6. So it's part of my life I don't remember a whole lot about, except for the snow and some other things like that. And so I never really got into sports until after I moved to LA. So I don't follow any of the Chicago teams. So, I get that a lot. As soon as people
yeah.
tell me, as soon as I say, oh yeah, I was actually born in Chicago. Oh, so you must like the Cubs and the Bears and like,
Bulls, Chicago Bulls, surely.
yeah, no, I've moved away before Jordan happened. So,
Is that bad timing? I don't know.
sort of.
But your last name, De La Fuente, is obviously, I imagine, Spanish. So where's that coming from originally?
Yeah, it's Spanish, but I'm 100% Filipino. So there's a mix of Spanish blood in there, I think, ancestry wise. But yeah, both of my parents are first generation Filipino. They met in Chicago, so that's where they met, married in Chicago, and that's I was born there. That's how my family wound up there. And then at some point, they made the decision to move to California.
Philippines got an interesting history with, I guess, colonization, which is not great or good, really, is it? But sort of melting pot of different cultures there, I think. Like, unusually so. I mean, you probably get like one almost like dominating colonizer, if you like, but it seems to me Philippines got like a bit of a mix of going on. There's like lots of different people there.
Yeah, for sure. It's become such a huge travel destination over the last maybe 15, 20 years or so. Like, people discovered their beaches and everything. And, sadly, I hate to admit this, but I haven't been back in probably more than 20 years.
Right.
Just because adulthood got in the way. And, I have a lot of family still there. Sneak preview, I actually working on a family reunion, which hopefully will take place next summer. So, I should say, like, I'm on the fringes of plan. Other people are planning it, but if it happens, I'm definitely going to be there. So that'll be my first trip back in more than 20 years. And even if it doesn't happen, I'm going to figure out a way to get back.
Do you know what? Philippines on my list. I think it's the only country I've not been to in Southeast Asia. So
really,
it's a bit of a hole, bit of a gap in my Southeast Asia list, and the beaches and the food and the culture looks amazing. Just itching to go there.
Underrated as a travel destination. I mean, there are lots of folks now who have been there and will tell you just how incredible it is. But like, I think it's like more that people rave about the beaches and stuff, but it's like a lot more than that. So
yeah,
definitely get into the cities a little bit, and food is making its U.S. and Canada, like it's having its moment, as far as like culturally, like people are discovering Filipino cuisine. So
yeah, it just looks like a bit different to maybe what you might get in the rest of the region, right? So I think that's what appeals to me down there. And you can fly direct from Vancouver, I think, to Manila. So, and no excuse really.
There you go, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about your backstory a little bit of travel in there, a bit of sport in there. So we're going to probably ignore the Chicago bit because you don't remember too much from that. So LA, so it's a melting pot of sport and travel. I mean, what a transient place for both, right? So growing up in LA, were you aware quite early doors that you liked a few sports, or was that quite a late burner, do you think?
No, probably around elementary school, 3rd, 4th grade, somewhere around there. I started really getting into sports. What's funny is my first probably real favorite team was the Lakers because they were, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, they were winning champions and all that. And all my friends were into the Lakers. Even my mom, who's just not into sports at all, was following the Lakers. And so I started following them. At some point, my first ever sporting event was a baseball, Angels baseball game when I was 9 years old. We sat literally at the very top row of the stadium. And I think like just the whole idea of like, 30,000 being around 30,000 people and like, watching this game and everything, there was something about it that kind of like struck a chord with me and like, and start kind of developing from there. Throughout my teenage years, I started to kind of follow other teams and started to really like dream about, you know, what it would be like seeing all these other, stadiums on television. And, when they do broadcasts of games, they always show like parts of the city too, like that they're in like some sort of slice of, Seattle. They'll show like the people throwing fish at Pike Place, for example.
Yeah.
Just little snippets of the city, right? And so like, kind of get like, okay, that's interesting. Like, I wonder what that city's really like. And so when I started getting into, I would say when I got to college and I started getting like I had a little bit of money to like just fly somewhere, I would go somewhere, see games. I went to, I have a cousin who lives in Toronto, so I went there, visited her for spring break, and saw a Maple Leafs game at the old Maple Leaf Gardens, which was a trip because like, they're first off, they were playing another Canadian team, so that they didn't play the American national anthem. They only played "O Canada," and then just the whole tiny historic arena, and then just how people in Canada get into hockey is just mind blowing. That like this I was really like, this is a real foreign environment to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like little transformative experiences like that, and they just kind of all revolved around sports and just my desire to get to see different stadiums. And so at some point, I formed this whole, what it'd be like to see every stadium in each of the major sports in America. So, that's baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. So, now, but this was back in the 90s, and so there are not quite as many teams as there are now. But now there's 124 teams across those four sports. So,
oh wow, 124.
So the goal. So I formed this goal at some point. I don't know how long it's going to take, but at some point, I'm going to try to get to see a home game for every single team in each of those leagues. And so here I am. I'm now 10 away from that goal. Completed 2 of the 4 leagues. And then some. So I have 5 teams left in the other 2 leagues, which is the NFL and NBA. And I'm endeavoring to complete both of those in the next year. So most of my travel is going to be focused around that. But at some point in 2010, I decided, it would be fun to write about this. And so that's how, and blogging was kind of a big thing, like a big up and coming thing at the time. And so that's how I started Itinerant Fan. Is just like, I'm just going to treat it as sort of a diary, as to all the different places I go to and how I did it, why I did it. And kind of keep it as like, benchmarks of like how close I'm getting to my goal. And then, at some point, I realized, okay, people are actually reading this, So I started turning it more into, writing guides to different stadiums and things like that. And so here I am, like,
wow.
So it's been more than 10 years, which is kind of mind blowing to me how long I've been at it. It's probably the longest I've done like a specific project in the entire, so it must mean that I actually care about it and I'm passionate about it.
And where does travel fit into this? So where's the interest growing up? Maybe because you mentioned about the throwing the fish in Seattle. So was that an element of you growing up also like wanting to see also these cities, maybe like slightly different culture in America, in America, like what goes on there and stuff like that?
So to me, sports is kind of the window into seeing the parts of the world that you're interested in. Yeah. And I feel like most people, whether they like make it a big deal or not, they travel because there's some sort of little goal in mind. Whether they want to see it, it could be stadiums, it could be national parks, it could be, I want to see, all these different great works of art. I could, I want to see like, try these types of foods in different, for traveling for food. Like, I feel like most people who travel avidly have some, or checking off countries, right? Like they have some sort of like little goal in mind. And that's the impetus. So that's what gets them out there. But then once you're out there, then you start seeing everything else about what the place that you're visiting, and just eye opening. Like, here's how people on the other side of the world live, or here's how people in this city live. And that's different from what I'm used to. And that's, sports to me is my jumping off point to seeing other parts of the world and experiencing what other people get to call normal. To me, that's like that's the most rewarding part of it. You know, stadiums are great, but like seeing other parts of the world is what like really is rewarding to me. And I think that's the message that I try to project through my site is like, yeah, you go follow your teams, go see these stadiums and all stuff. But while you're out there, experience everything that there is to experience, because you might not go to this place ever again.
Yeah, and where does international travel fit into that? Because obviously for American sports, I say there's the big four, they dip into Canada as well, which technically is abroad, but fairly similar. But like you would have grown up with all these amazing sports in your own country. And I think for us in the UK, we have the Premier League, which is great, right? But
Yeah.
there's a big emphasis on England or Scotland or wherever you're from about following your team internationally because we have the World Cup. And as we are having now the Euros, right, which is always going to be mostly in another country, sometimes in your own country, but it's every 20 years or something, right? So like, where did that fit into your thinking growing up? Was there ever like an interest maybe, oh, maybe I could follow like the US national team somewhere in an event?
So I'm a huge, I really enjoy the Olympics.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I've always wanted to see, you know, my favorite sports is hockey. And so like, I really enjoy the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
At some point when the NHL was sending players to the Olympics, I said to myself, I really want to go see this. And then 2010, I thought I had the perfect opportunity because the Olympics were in Vancouver. I wasn't living in LA, but I was living in Sacramento at the time. And I told my wife, like, easy trip, like we could go. I'm sure, you know, it'll be crazy expensive once we get there, but it'd be easy to get there. Well, life got in the way, like, things didn't work out. I didn't go. And so I always thought that was like a huge missed opportunity. And so I told my wife, next opportunity we get to go to the Olympics, we should go. No matter like move heaven and earth to do it. Well, the 2014 Olympics were the next one, and that was in Sochi, Russia.
Russia, yeah.
And somewhere in 2013, we were like thinking to ourselves, like, okay, where can we go that's like super exotic? And we are just thinking somewhere in Europe, and we're like, hey, remember what we were talking about with the Olympics? Let's do it. Like, let's just figure out a way to go. So I had some like airline miles at the time. I spent all of them to get. We didn't even get to Russia. We got to Munich. So we were able to fly to Munich for free, and then we bought flights to go to Russia for the rest of the way. So we went to Russia for the Olympics, and that was we saw all of Team USA's three. Their three. The way it's set up, the Olympic hockey tournament set up is they're guaranteed 3 games, and then if they advance to the medal round, they go.
Yeah.
So we got tickets for all 3 of those games, and one of them was against Russia. And so at one of those, so we got to see the U.S. versus Russia in Russia. So basically a road game.
Yeah.
Amongst a bunch of Russian fans who I'm not sure if they were taking it to us kindly or not. Like we were sitting with, you know, Russian fans on either side of us, and like them yelling stuff and that we couldn't understand, and complete, total mind blowing, like probably the biggest, like, I can't believe I'm here experience.
Yeah. Surreal. Yeah.
So like to go back to your original question, like, yeah, I think that I have kind of a focus on domestic sports, but like, you know, all of these sports are becoming so international. The Premier League, they're playing games in the U.S. over the summer. The NFL plays games in London, and now they're playing in Germany, and they're going to play in Brazil this year, and they're going to play in Spain next year. And there's just so many more opportunities to do things internationally. The Olympics are in Paris, and the next Winter Olympics are in Italy, which they're saying anyway that the NHL they're gonna send their players to that one, you know, for the first time in like since the Sochi one. So I'm hoping to go to that one. And there are just like so many opportunities, you know, to go to experience different things. I wish the Brazil NFL game is Eagles versus Packers, and I know a bunch of people who are Eagles fans. I don't know if any of them are actually going, but I think they're considering it. And it's just one of those, like, you have an opportunity to do that. When is it ever going to come again? So you might as well, maybe Brazil is not a place you've ever thought of as like, oh, I want to go do that. But like, well, you can go there, go to a place that's completely foreign to you, but do one thing that's completely familiar, which is see your favorite football team play. So like, you know, a great jumping off point to me to to go see things like that. And it just opens up a lot more windows of like, this is how the rest of the world lives. Me going to England a couple of years ago got me more interested in like seeing like all these different grounds in the Premier League and like, or just, football in England in general. And I just felt a lot more educated about, the whole system of how soccer works in England, which is like completely different from organized sports in the US. So very long-winded. Sorry, that was,
Nah, it's good.
I just think there's like this jumping off point, like, like I said, that you get that one thing that you're familiar with that brings you to a foreign place. And then from there, just like this whole horizon opens up for you. And like, you can just like take that opportunity to experience a whole bunch of things that you're not familiar with.
Yeah, and I think the best thing about it is your sporting event. So if you're going to watch the NFL in Brazil, I mean, what the game's going to last, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours, right? But then you're probably there for at least a week, I'd imagine, just to be there, right? So that gives it all that other time to go and see all the things that Brazil are known for. So like, if they love their sports, they can go and play football or soccer, should I say, on the beach. I mean, everyone does that in Rio every day.
Yeah.
So like, that's like a bit of a culture, right? A culture thing that involves a bit of sport as well. So Brazil would be a great place just to watch any sport because they love all sports, I think. Yeah.
And you did that, right? That was because that was the World Cup that.
Yeah. So obviously Brazil is mad about football, as in soccer, and they probably rival England in that. I mean, England's pretty crazy as well, hence the Premier League, but the experience was unlike any other. We based ourselves in Rio and we flew out to different games into different cities and then back again. So we had a bit of a base. There's things to remember here that like Brazil in a World Cup time is not in quotations like real Brazil because it's all set up and geared for football, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of football fans around, but if you love that sporting side of it and that's all you're interested in, that's a great place to be in. And we absolutely loved it. But I do need to go back, I guess, in non-sporting terms to see what it's like, right? Because I think it's two different things. But honestly, Brazil was crazy. Like, they love their football, their sports. They're really into it. Fan zones on the beach, good-natured, lots of colour and fun and drinking. And you don't have to drink, but like lots of stuff going on.
Yeah. That's a good point because, like, when a country hosts an event that large, they're also putting their best foot forward and trying to like present themselves in the best light possible to the rest of the world.
Yes.
Because we went to Russia, we were a little intimidated, and we had a lot of people here at home going, "Don't be careful," just like this intimating that like something bad. We've heard all these bad things about Russia. So like. We got there and like we weren't shy about wearing USA stuff and like hey, we're American, and people just came up to us and like started talking to us in English. They'd whip out their phones so they could use Google Translate so they could we have a ton of pictures of us holding Russian flags next to Russian people because they wanted to take their pictures with us. But I also have no doubt that that's a unique thing. Let's put our best foot forward. Ignore all the political stuff that goes on. And for 2 weeks, let's welcome the world. But then when all of that's over, the real stuff, they go back to reality and it's not quite as pretty. So I do get that. So it's not necessarily the exact, accurate picture of what a country's really like. But, hey, it's an opportunity to do something that's, I don't know if I'm ever going to get an opportunity to go to Russia again. So just having the opportunity to do that was, and that's literally halfway around the world for me. So,
it's an interesting point that because my friends went to the Russia World Cup, which was not long after your games, and England made the semi-finals and lost. But it's in Moscow, right? So they went in for like 2 days, quite close to UK, right? 4-hour flight. Special visas on arrival, in and out, and they're just in Red Square, right? Just hanging about, getting some photos. England shirts on, it's all it's all policed, right? Quite heavily.
Yeah.
But they said this one guy just sort of crept up to them, and he's quite old, and just said to him, like, sort of whispered, like, "This isn't normal. Like, this is not real life." So, and then just walked away. That's it. Like, and they're like, "Oh, what was that about?" But it's exactly your point, right? When you're there, it's going to be seemingly normal because obviously they want to portray that, but obviously after the event's finished, it's going to go back to what it is. And unfortunately, it's not as probably anywhere close to what you saw.
Yeah.
But sport does bring people together in that finite moment of, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours of that game, right? But there is really nothing else to talk about. You're just enjoying the event for what it is. And then obviously afterwards you go back to your lives. But like, it's quite nice in that moment that you get to share that sort of mutual love for a sport, I guess, even though it's a bit of rivalry there.
Yeah. And I think like you can kind of forget about everything else, and just focus on this. This, that USA Russia hockey game I mentioned, like, the interactions I had with Russians, I was kind of like, okay, how are they going to react? Because the U.S. ended up winning that game in a shootout, and we were walking out, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, how are they, are people going to be upset? Like, even in sporting events in the U.S., like you get people fighting each other over the result, right?
Yeah.
Like, so will this be worse? I don't know. Like, so people walking out, like, I think for the most part, people were just like, all right, well, that sucks, but hey, we're at the freaking Olympics, so let's
Yeah.
enjoy ourselves. So I felt like that was basically the vibe that I got. That was probably, that was a one-time thing. I don't know if that's, totally representative of how people act at international events, but like, for that one, like it's pretty eye-opening that, how people were intense, but not like quite as intense as I thought they would be.
Mm.
And so that's maybe my own expectations being higher than they needed to be, but or like more worried than I needed to be about the whole situation. But like, I wound up like pleasantly surprised at how the whole thing went down.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. I will go back to your stadium thing as well. There's like one in UK because, as you said earlier, that sports in UK is set up differently to US, right? We don't have franchises. We have relegation and promotion, right? So a football, for example, or soccer, you have the Premier League, which probably everyone knows, but then there's 3 leagues below them, right? And there's a challenge to visit every stadium in those 4 leagues. So people will take this challenge on. I think it's about, my maths is going to be wrong here. I think it's 92, something like that. I could be wrong, something like that. I think there's 20 in Premier League, 24 in Championship, probably 24 in League One. It's going to be AY there, but it's about 26 maybe in League Two. I could be wrong, something like that. But the weird thing is it changes every year, right? Because at the bottom level, the 4th division, there's still relegation, right? So like teams drop out of there and then new teams come up, and sometimes they're new teams, right? So you have somewhere new to go all the time. But yeah, it's normally a challenge for a lot of people to do, and it's quite cool because the UK is quite small, so you can achieve it pretty easily on the trains or on the coaches, right? But US or Canada, if you try and do those 4 sports, I mean, that's long distances to complete, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I went to England. But my interest in the Premier League is fairly new. In the US, probably only the last 10 or 12 years that they start showing games regularly on
Okay.
TV. They were available,
Yeah.
And so it's one of those, like, I'm interested. I want to see what this is all about. I have friends who are super interested in it. So like, it's a cool thing to do on Sunday mornings to just turn on the TV and there's a match on. And so, I got to know the little history of some of the more popular teams and everything. So I have like, casual fans' knowledge of the history of a lot of these teams. But when we went to England in 2022, and this was a trip that was delayed 2 years because of the pandemic. We were supposed to go in 2020. I kind of developed that knowledge. Okay, I'm going to try to go to, I knew how the whole fixtures worked and how matches could be moved based on, so I was trying to like schedule this trip around. My wife was with me, so of course she wanted to do a bunch of different things also, but I was like, I'm going to try to see as many matches as possible while we're there. And so the schedule comes out and I realized like, okay, I can see Tottenham, I can see Arsenal, and I can see Manchester United. Now, I was like, I know Tottenham and Arsenal are like huge rivals. So like, I was like,
pretty close.
Is it, pardon me, my own naivete about this whole thing is I was like, is it like kosher for me to see both of those and want that? Like, are people going to frown upon that? So it's not like I advertise or anything, but, it's like, again, we'll see how this goes. So, you go through this whole, process of getting tickets and that, because these clubs are so popular, you have to buy a membership just to be able to have the opportunity to buy tickets. So for that season, I was both a Spurs member and an Arsenal member. So,
Yeah, don't say it too loudly. Yeah.
yeah, well, like, I don't know too many people. Yeah, like, if I'd probably get revoked by both of those, and I was a member of the other two, right? But yeah, I took some 2 a.m. wake up calls to buy tickets and some pairing, but I was able to get to both of those stadiums, which was really cool. And then Manchester United was like, my friends who in the US who know football in England were just like, whoa, you went to Manchester United? That's amazing. And so that's kind of how I got, I was just like, even though there's like a huge effort involved in that, I want to be able, and now I know those are like three of the biggest clubs out there. And yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of people who would be like, well, what about some of these other like less popular ones? And to which I'll say, I'll get to those. But, I do want to make it sort of a regular thing. Like, I do think the Premier League is becoming more and more popular in England. Some of the other European leagues, I think less, like, Real Madrid and Barcelona are super popular. Bayern is popular, like, felt like because of Mbappe and Messi that PSG was becoming popular, so, like, well known in the US to where like people, are thinking about it as sort of a destination. And so that's part of what I want to, from content perspective, that's what I want to be able to provide to my audience is like, okay, well, here's how I managed to do this. And it was pretty hard, and like lay out the difficulties behind it, but like, you can do it too. And the more popular clubs, want to go through like the difficulty of all of it just to lay out truthfully, like, this is how you do it. And, it part of the fun is in the chase, like part of it's in the, like, getting the tickets sometimes is super difficult, but when you actually get them, you're like, you're like, yes, like, it's off, so, yeah, I definitely want to go. I've been to England twice in the last 2 years, and I'm hoping to go again maybe in a couple of years and just keep trying to get to as many stadiums as possible.
And do you base yourself in London? Is that your go-to?
Yeah, usually. I mean, that's the easiest. I did want to, the first trip, if I'd gone in 2020, I would have also seen Manchester City. And that would have been a Champions League match, which would have been pretty.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But yeah, I would start in London, take the train up. I did make one rookie mistake on the Manchester United day, in that we tried to take the train the day of the match. And so we went to, it was Euston Station. So we get there, and at like 7 a.m, we're like, we're going to take an early train. The match is at 3 p.m. We can get there super early. We get there 7 p.m. The place is already crawling with Manchester United fans. And then we realized there's no assigned seats on these trains. Like, it's literally when they call, like, we need to make a mad dash. And like, so they called this such and such train, literally 3/4 of the waiting room. Boom. Like we're talking probably a couple thousand people. Boom. Like, start running down I was like, oh man, we're not going to, and sure enough, we didn't get on this for like, we decided there's like one other train if we waited 45 minutes, let's try our luck on the next train, which was like probably the dumbest thing we could have done, because we went back to the waiting room, and then here comes more.
Yeah.
The waiting room gets filled up even more with fans. And then the next thing, so we're trying to position ourselves to be like at least in a better position when the mad dash happens. And we got there, and we still didn't get any seats. And so I ended up in the vestibule the entire ride. My wife ended up in a sitting in like one of those baggage holders. She wasn't happy with me, but we got there. It turned out great. We went to the match. Manchester United lost, so everyone was yeah, they lost to Brighton. And so,
right. Okay. Yeah.
And so, we heard a lot of, how come we'd be losing to Brighton, with swear words in
yeah.
But that was fun. It was, sometimes travel mishaps, like, once you survive them, you can tell a funny story about it later. And that's definitely what happens. And now I can tell people, like, if you're trying to go from London to Manchester or Liverpool to see a match, don't take the train the day of the match. Like, that's.
No, because the transport in UK is disgrace. I mean, it's expensive, it's slow, and it's unreliable, right? So, but then the problem we have with that is, if you want to go to Manchester United the day before, you've got to stay somewhere, right? And I guess the hotel costs will be expensive as well. So you can't really win. I think that's one of the complaints about, especially football these days is quite expensive to really plan it. Well, it's not really a working class sport anymore in terms of money. It's definitely more middle class because you need a bit of money to commit to it, especially
Yeah,
for kids as well and a whole family.
yeah, definitely for sure. Yeah, I think a cost was a consideration. I think we saw the hotels in Manchester. We're like, okay, let's save and go the day of. And
Yeah.
now I can just say from experience, don't do that. Spend the extra money, go the night before.
Hey, yeah, just a quick one. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5. Or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for traveling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you. Okay, and we've kind of danced around some stories. I haven't actually asked you probably quite an important question. Which sports do you follow closely, and which teams do you follow closely as well? So I guess I'm asking you, who do you support in every sport?
Yeah, so my big number one team is the Los Angeles Kings, the hockey team.
Okay.
They're my first. They were my first. I told you the story about the Lakers. I don't actually support the Lakers anymore. I just don't really follow basketball much. I think I only like the Lakers because they were winning championships at the time, and all my friends liked them. But I don't really follow them. So the Kings are number one, and then I started following them during the Gretzky days when I was a kid, and just continue to like them over the years. They've obviously had some ups and downs, but they won championships about 10 years ago, and continue to follow them. I try to see a couple road games a year, so pretty passionate about them. I went to college at USC, so I support their football team pretty strongly. And then the LA Chargers, which is no, there are not too many. There are not too many diehard Chargers. I mean, there are diehard Chargers fans. Like just compared to some of the bigger teams in the NFL, like there aren't that many of us, and that's really it. Like I don't really have a baseball team. I don't really have a basketball team, but I do appreciate those sports and just being able to go see those live. Like not having a team. Not being a fan of either team makes you able to just go to the games and enjoy them, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's quite nice to be neutral sometimes.
Yeah, and not being like upset when you go to your team and they lose,
Yeah, absolutely. The weird thing about American sports, and I think a lot of people in Europe will definitely attest to this, is how big the college scene is. And I think an example of that I couldn't believe the other day is this is NBA. So I follow NBA the most at American sports, right? Somewhere. For my sins, a Raptors fan, which has been a tough few years. But I have seen them win a championship though, so that's quite rare. But the Lakers, as you mentioned, they're chasing this guy who's won the national championship 2 years in a row, and he turned them down. You think that's really hard to comprehend in UK sports. That's like a reserve team. There's a reserve team league underneath the pro leagues, right? That's like a reserve team league manager saying no to like Manchester United. But the difference is in the US, he's paid like millions a year at that level, at college level. And he's like, nah, I'm going to turn it down. Like Lakers, like arguably one of the biggest NBA teams for sure, like if not the biggest, right? It just blew my mind. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, you realize how much money there is in college sports. And, until the last 4 or 5 years, all of it has been going to the coaches. And so finally, like the players are getting a big piece of the pie, but like the whole amateurism debate in college sports is an interesting one. College fans, obviously we get a ton of enjoyment from watching these teams and we live and die with them and all that, but the players, haven't been getting a piece of the pie until recently, which is interesting. That's probably a topic for another day. Yeah. But I think that the whole Dan Hurley thing kind of showed just how much money there is in college sports and how big of a business it truly is. So yeah, it's huge in college football is its own animal here in the US. Just and the passion of fans and everything. I've probably been to more road USC games than I've definitely been to more road USC games than road Kings games. as far as, teams that I follow.
Wow.
There's something to following your college. You don't even need to have gone to the college to really support it, but like, it's just, there's something, because it's more than just a team. Like, it's an institution. Then you start like thinking about like, oh, well, we're better academically, and all. So you start doing all these other weird debates about your college. Like, there's something about it that's, I mean, it's probably a little closer to the whole idea of a club in Europe than a professional franchise in the US, because most clubs they don't just have the soccer team. They have like other things going on, right? And college is kind of like that.
Yeah, I think the clubs in UK, they're more traditional and tribal, right? They've been around for over 100 years.
Tribal, that's the perfect way to put it. Yeah,
yeah,
and how long they've been around? Because most of the major universities have been around for hundreds of years too.
Yeah, so you probably see, I don't know if you even watch it, but the Oxford Cambridge boat race every year in May. I think it's May. I have no real interest in it because I've not gone to either Oxford or Cambridge, but that is just deep rooted in hundreds of years of history, right? So football teams that came along in the 1800s. I mean, how long ago was that? It's 150 years ago. They've been there as a part of the community for that long. That is kind of deep rooted anyway. So if you're into your football, that is deep rooted in tribalism, which can be good and bad in some ways. And I guess the weird thing to think about is that we somehow all come together to support the national team, like now in the Euros, right? And then once that's over, you sort of filter back into your tribalism, into your teams. So like, there's a small element of violence in sport, right? It always has been. So like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they could be fighting each other over a club game, but then they come together in a game now for the national team. It's a strange, weird thing. Yeah. And it's all about where you're from.
You can certainly flip on and off your like or dislike of a team based on, dumb things like, who certain players, that team beat my team a month ago, so therefore I hate them now, but it's the time I don't care, so for example, the Stanley Cup final, I was rooting for Florida because Edmonton beat my team in the playoffs. They've beaten them 3 years in a row.
Oh yeah.
Which I rationally, I can acknowledge that Edmonton has been the better team by far each of those years, and they were a true contender. But in the final, I was like, go Florida, because I didn't want to see them win. So well, like, you flip this light switch on and off, like based on like, just things that happened recently and stuff like that. And, I have no reason to root for Florida otherwise.
I mean, even here, I think the Canucks, arguably, you could even say they're better in the series against the Oilers, but they lost in the end. I think it's come back from work that it got to 3-3, or was it? It might have been the decider. I can't remember. And people were not happy. Yeah, so I'm intrigued to see if people here would have supported them or the Florida team. But what's really weird about Florida is this is hockey, ice hockey. You don't have ice in bloody Florida. I don't understand. Crazy. Okay, I got some more questions before we get onto like the last section, which is going to be like predictions and some competition stuff.
Sure.
So, question here is, what are some of your favorite cities to travel to watch sport? So, the sporting event happens, I get it, but like, is there some cities in the US or even in Europe or around the world where you love being there as part of the whole thing, not just the sporting event, but like, you love chilling out in coffee shops or whatever you do when you travel? Is there any that come to your mind?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I would, Chicago is a great place. And I don't say that because I was born there, but like, I just think like Chicago has this, they're super passionate about their teams, but there's also that Midwest nice attitude about fairly welcoming to outsiders and all that. So you can get into like, it's intense without being angry. So I've really enjoyed trips to Chicago. Canada's different. I loved going to Montreal for games. I'm old enough to where I used to go to baseball games there when the Expos were there. Yep. At that time, they were about to move, and the outside narrative was nobody in Montreal cares about baseball. I'm like, that's incorrect. People love Montreal. It's just that they saw the writing on the wall and were just jaded about the whole situation. But they loved baseball. I would love to see Montreal get a team back. But beyond that, Montreal's just an amazing city to visit.
Yeah.
It's it's like going to Europe without having to cross the Atlantic. The food's amazing, just the culture. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite city in Canada because I also like Toronto and I also like Vancouver, but Montreal is like a great sports city. Like if you ever get a chance to go for a sporting event, like that to me is a great like jumping off point to experiencing everything about Montreal. And I'd say like I've grown to really enjoy London as a sports
Oh
destination.
yeah.
I haven't seen every stadium around there yet, or every club that just Tottenham and Arsenal so far. And I got to see West Ham.
Oh,
Uh,
Olympic Stadium.
yeah, that was fun. The that Olympic Stadium is pretty cool, and they use that when they have baseball games there. They use it for that too because they have that bigger footprint because it was used for track and field. So that was a fun experience too. Um, but yeah, like I was actually so I was there. My last trip was around the time of the Carabao Cup final, which was at Wembley, but
Yeah.
too expensive for me, so I didn't go. But I ended up watching part of the match from one of those, pretty, I guess, stereotypical, if that's the right way to put it, but like, a pub,
Yeah.
like a bunch of fans cheering for one or the other, and there was a party and didn't bother anybody, but like, um, just kind of seeing it, like it was the same as far as a sports bar experience, but a little different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just the whole atmosphere, like, um, you know, it wasn't like hostile by any means, but it was like intense in a good way. And I'm probably not describing this like accurately enough, but like as an outsider, you go, okay, this, as long as nobody like comes up and is hostile toward me, like, and I'm good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool being like a neutral observer, just watching people go watch this pretty big match. So, I definitely want to experience more of that. I want to throw one other city out there, Mexico City.
Oh wow. Okay.
I actually saw the NFL has been playing games in Mexico City for the last 7 or 8 years, and we went in 2019 to go see the NFL game there, and it's my first chance to go to Mexico City, and I was just blown away by how great that city is. Like I think it's one of the great travel destinations in North America. People sleep like on the culture, great food city,
Mm.
like laid back atmosphere. People are actually pretty friendly from the experiences I had. Just and then that whole hustle and bustle, the vibe of everything that's going around in that city. I couldn't say enough good things about that. I would definitely want to go back sometime soon.
It's great to hear. I'm actually off there in November for the first time. So
Oh, great! Yeah.
yeah, it's actually at the end of my trip. So that is going to be my last port of call before I fly back to Vancouver. But yeah, I just hear so many good things about Mexico City. It's pretty buzzing to go and check it out.
I'll give you some food recs if you want them.
Yeah, I need them. Yeah, absolutely. There's two key things, sports and foods, right?
Yeah.
I've got also just quickly for your stadium thing in London, an easy one to go to. I think a lot of people would agree if you're a sports fan is Fulham in southwest London because they have a neutral stand. It's the only stadium I think in UK that has a neutral stand, definitely in Premier League anyway, where you do get the fans mix because they're kind of considered like a nice club. Not much tribalism there. It's situated in Chelsea, well, next to Chelsea, right? It's Chelsea and Fulham together, but they're not really, I guess they are rivals, but not serious rivals, right? It's not like a big Tottenham Arsenal thing, right? It's nothing like that. But
Yeah.
tickets are pretty easy to get on the day. I don't think you even need to be a member, I don't think. So that could be a nice one to tick off. And it's right by the Thames River, and you can probably get like a nice little drink by there. A popular thing that away fans do at Fulham is they get the boat along the Thames to the ground, right? You can rent or pay to go on a boat that starts like maybe in East London and works its way west along the river, and it stops at Fulham, and you just get off and then go to the game. It's a pretty cool thing to do.
Okay. Yeah, I knew somebody who, well, the first time I went to London, he asked about Fulham, and I was like, I haven't thought about that, but I'll take a look, and I did from a proximity standpoint, I was like, yeah, like this is something I should consider. So that's great to hear. Like I think I definitely want to start exploring more of the less popular or the less the ones that the casual American fan wouldn't think of too much.
Yeah. Now, there's stadiums like dotted in areas that are not central London, right? So it's quite it's quite an interesting trip if you try and get some of those in. Like West Ham used to be, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, but now the Olympic Stadium is quite central-ish and it's quite commercialized, right? But the old ground, Upton Park, used to be like in amongst the working class area. So that's now gone, unfortunately. But you find a lot of English clubs going that way because they're trying to upgrade their grounds. So they're getting built, either rebuilt on the same spot, but more than not moving to another area in the same area, but like just rebuilt into like these new stadiums. Like Tottenham's a classic one. You probably went to the new one, right? The new stadium, I guess, which is, I think, one of the best in the world now, but it's on the ground of where the old one was. And I think a lot of people complain that sometimes you don't get that old feel anymore. But I guess that's moving with the times.
Right. Yeah, I did. I actually, that match, I was talking to somebody who was kind of a longtime fan and was saying, kind of had that same sentiment, like, awesome. The stadium is great. I'm glad we have it. Doesn't have the same vibe as the old place.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think people move around, right? You get these decades long season ticket holders who stay in the same place. And I guess the atmosphere is created because they all know each other, right? But then these new stadiums come along and you get dotted around and you kind of break up that, almost like that community feel, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Price of progress.
Yeah, yeah. And then my team has made it to the Premier League for the first time in 20 plus years. So 2 consecutive promotions from League One to the Premier League is quite unheard of to do that. Only a few teams have done it. And it's unheard of because effectively the team that's gone up is actually a third division team because they started 2 divisions ago and it's gone straight up and then straight up again. So now they'll be playing against Man City, and like 2 years ago they're playing against, I don't know, Oxford, who really low down, right? So it's going to be an exciting but also a bit worrying season because we could get a few bad results this year. Yeah, got to look out for that. But that's Ipswich Town. Yeah, they're back, and we have about 30,000 our stadium holds.
So are you from that area?
I'm controversially from Norwich. So you said earlier about tribalism. Huge rivals, Norwich and Ipswich, right? Big rivals.
Okay.
But there's a story to it. But yeah, I'm actually an Ipswich fan for my sins, really. All my friends are Norwich fans. So, and that's a bit of a weird dynamic. But those 2 clubs are rivals, and they're actually known in the UK sphere of football as being rivals, right? It's quite obvious because they are one club counties, if you know what I mean. So like Norwich is in Norfolk, the county, Ipswich is in Suffolk. They don't have any other teams in that county, whereas someone in Sheffield could support Sheffield Wednesday or Sheffield United because they've got 2 teams in the same city. So it's quite unique. It's like area against area, not just like little bits of a city against a city.
Gotcha.
But there you go. Yeah, it's only 45 minutes from London, going east. So if you want to go to Ipswich Town, it'd be quite a good place to go. I wouldn't check out the town; it's not very nice, but the stadium would be good.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've ever ventured that direction. So I've only gone north from London. So
yes, see again.
And one time went west, but yeah, south.
Yeah, the West doesn't really have. Oh no, better be careful what I say here. Say not too many big clubs, but they do have big clubs, but maybe not Premier League clubs, right? Yeah, South Coast has got some, but like going west, nah, I can't think of any that are Premier League. So yeah, you wouldn't go there if you're going to stick to Premier League. So there you go. What have I got here? Some questions. I think that's it for that section. I think I'm going to go into this like section 3. I called it the fun section because I want to hear what you think about these maybe seasons coming up, the current events. If you've got any opinions on who's going to win. So I've got a couple of reflections first, actually, on your sports. So NBA, the Celtics won it this year, quite easily, to say the least, against the Mavs. It's been a while since they won it there, isn't it? Celtics.
Yeah, since
2008. But they're kind of like a bit like Manchester United in football, where a lot of people don't like them, do they?
Right, yeah, and definitely people here in LA, because the Celtics and the Lakers were tied for most championships in NBA history, and now the Celtics moved ahead of them with this title. So,
oh right, okay.
So the Laker fans that I know are pretty upset about that. Probably with good reason. Yeah, I mean, I was a kid during the whole Lakers Celtics rivalries of the 80s, and I think they played each other in the finals twice in 2008, 2010. So there's definitely this rivalry, this hatred, and I think in general in American sports, like people have grown to really dislike Boston because their teams win at everything. Like they had the Patriots
Yeah.
winning for a long time. They had um, the Red Sox have won 4 times in the last 15 or so years, and then the Bruins won one, just the one against Vancouver that one time, and now the Celtics have won a couple in the last. So like Boston in sports, I don't know if it's the same around the world, but in America, like you can't be too successful, otherwise like people start to really dislike you.
I think it's the same across the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a jealousy thing, which totally understood. But yeah, like so I understand why people in LA are upset about the Celtics win, but the fact of the matter is, from the games I saw, they were just too good. Like they steamrolled everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Mavs had a pretty good season, but like I'm not surprised that series went the way it went, because just Boston was just that dominant all the way through. So I don't, it'll be interesting to see if they sustain the success and win like a couple more championships. Tatum and Brown are just, they're in the primes, and you can see them like being that dominant for at least a couple more seasons here. So, depends on the supporting cast, I guess, but like,
I think they will.
Wow.
Yeah. They've kind of been up there for a few seasons, right? The Mavs come out of nowhere, and that's a bit different, but when the Celtics are just like, they're kind of hanging around, right? They've got to like Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know if they got to a conference final, an NBA's final. I can't remember, but they've always been up there in the Eastern Conference for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. There's always a matter of time, which is a sign of a good team. Whereas the Mavs, I'm worried about, that's a one-off, and it depends who they can get to back up Luka and Kyrie, right? So yeah, I hope they do, because I quite like the Mavs, but I'm not optimistic.
Sure. Yeah, they're a fun team to watch. I'll give them that. Luke is a real fun player to watch. He can just totally light it up from any given game.
So. Yeah. Okay, I've got NHL. Your favorite? I mean, the current series is crazy. Oilers 3-0 down, got it back to 3-3, then lost it. I mean, has that ever happened much in your lifetime for series in the finals?
Well, not in the finals, but I am a fan of a team that came back from 3-0 down to win a series. Kings fans will gladly tell you in 2014 that they were down 3-0 to the Sharks in the first round, came back to win that series, and then went on to win the Stanley Cup. So
no way. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, very fond. Probably one of my top sports memories. Yeah, that entire playoff series was crazy, because the Kings went to 7 games in each of the first 3 series, and so they had to win Game 7 on the road each of those 3 series.
Oh wow!
Managed to do that. So it was one of the hardest playoff runs I've ever seen, and they managed. The harder the journey is, the more rewarding the championship if they win it. So that I think 2014 was just a top memory of mine. But yeah, like I think from a Kings fan standpoint, if Edmonton had won Game 7, we would have been like, well, not only did the team that beat us in this year's playoffs win, but we'll also lose the distinction of being the last team to come back from 3-0 down to win a series. So we won on 2 fronts by Florida win. But yeah, objectively speaking, Edmonton is a super strong team, and any team that's got McDavid is going to be one to reckon with. So it's I don't think we've seen the last of them. Florida will be interesting because they have all these free agents coming up, so the team that comes back could look really different. But one of the things I like about the NHL is that you don't often see teams win over and over and over again because of the salary cap and all that. You get a lot of parity. The Blackhawks of the early 2010s, and the Kings the Blackhawks won 3 championships, the Kings won 2, and then since then the Penguins won 2 straight. And then since then, there's been a bunch of new teams that have won. So a bunch of different teams are getting that experience of winning it all. So I think that's good for the sport in the long run to have that kind of parity. You kind of think that every year you actually have a decent shot if your team is good to have it. And I think hopefully the Kings are one of those teams that's going to be a contender next year, but we'll see. But yeah, I think it could really be anybody's championship next year, and hopefully my team's a part of it. But that's the fun thing about the NHL, is going to different stadiums around over the course of the regular season. You're almost guaranteed to see a game and an interesting, if not one, if not both teams, then at least one of those teams is going to be interesting and in the playoff race and all that. So that's part of what I enjoy about going around seeing different NHL games.
Yeah, and I think for NHL, that is really the only sport here. I mean, I don't think Vancouver is a sporting hub. And by the professional teams we have hardly any, right? We've got the Whitecaps in the MLS, and we've got the Canucks, which are by far the biggest team here out of anything. We used to have NBA, but no more, of course. So what's interesting about that is the Football World Cup. We'll come to football, soccer in a minute, but just quickly, they have a game. They have the games here as one of the 3 Canadian cities. So at least they've got something in the future, right? Which in a couple of years' time. But in general, for sport, not a great place to be.
Great city, though.
Yeah, cool city. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, it's great. But not if you're maybe an avid sports fan. You can dip down to Seattle, I guess, maybe. Yeah. I've got like 2 sports here that I don't really follow, and I assume you might be the same, is Major League Baseball and NFL. I know that baseball is currently ongoing now and the season started, and NFL is not. Do you follow them anything at all, or just on the periphery a little bit?
Yeah, no, I follow both pretty closely.
Okay.
I don't have a favorite baseball team, but I follow the sport pretty closely.
Okay, you do. Yeah.
Yeah, and from a travel standpoint, I think baseball is the easiest sport to get into because I always tell people the difference between baseball and the other sports is that you can go to a baseball game, spend however much on a ticket, and not watch a second of the game, and still feel like you're getting your money's worth because it doesn't matter where you're sitting. There are places where you can stand, have a beer, like see a bunch of stuff around the ballpark, like do a lot of different things. And it's kind of a leisurely atmosphere and all that. So if you're not into baseball, like I would like actually suggest like just going to one, and you don't have to care about the result of the game. You can just like kind of be there as like it's a social. It's truly like a social event. So as long as you're with friends, of course, but like you can treat it as that and not really care about the whole who wins the game and everything. So
I saw one match, I saw one game, and I don't know a few players and teams because I do follow it very loosely. But I saw Bryce Harper hit a couple of home runs in San Francisco.
Okay.
And that was pretty cool. So I think with the way the ground is, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for a left-hander, if you're hitting a home run, there's potential to hit it out of the ground into the water. I think you have a thing there, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and I know he's one of the best paid, biggest players in the baseball league, right? So, yeah, that was a cool thing to see. But the problem is with baseball, from my point of view, is if you don't follow it, there are so many stats and things you have to keep an eye on if you want to try and track the actual game. It's quite overwhelming. I mean, my friend again, like Google out, like, what is that stat? What's happening here? The 3-strike thing. On TV, when they throw the ball, you can see the square that the umpire says if it's a strike or not, but on live, you can't. So so a lot of things to consider.
Yeah. For sure, it's kind of a thinking man's game for sure. But yeah, it's leisurely. It's an enjoyable day. It's a day at the game, and you can just have a good time. Versus football, American football, you get like people get super intense and
yeah.
Every play they live and die with. So baseball, take advantage of the leisurely part of it and just have a good time at the game. But yeah, like to go back to your question, like I'm here in LA, and the Dodgers are playing well. So they're a super interesting team because they got Shohei Ohtani, who's like kind of one of the few baseball players who transcends the sport. Like that you don't have to follow baseball to know who he is, and he is really an amazing player to watch. And he's not even pitching this year, but he's mashing balls out of the ball. Every home run he hits is just a mammoth home run. It's pretty wild to see how strong he is. But the Dodgers fans here in LA are always kind of they're cautious because they've made the playoffs 10, 11, 12 straight years, but they've only won the championship once. I think people are just kind of girding themselves to be disappointed again until they actually break through. So the Dodgers are interesting. The Phillies, who you mentioned, I think are also a very interesting team to watch. And then the Yankees are, I think, the best team currently by record in the American League, which people love to hate the Yankees. So when they're playing well, you get the Yankees fans who are super happy, and then the people who hate the Yankees who are irrationally angry about the Yankees playing well. So that's always a good combination. So it's shaping up to be a pretty interesting baseball season, I think, and like the playoff could be pretty entertaining if all those teams get in and perform pretty well.
Who do you think will win it? Just finally on that, if you had to pick a team.
Um, it's funny because in baseball is one of those sports where the best team rarely actually wins. When
Okay.
because it the system in baseball is interesting because they play 162 games, which is a lot of games,
Yeah, it's chaos. Yeah.
and then you get put in a 5 game playoff series. So if you could be the best team hands down for 162 games, and then if you don't perform well in 3 out of 5 games, you're done.
Mm,
Doesn't seem fair.
no.
So, but that's the way the system is. So it's like it's not really if you're the best team over the course of the season. It's whether you're playing well at the right time, which is September, October when the playoffs come around. So it's really anybody's guess. I'm one of those, like, because I live here in LA and have a lot of Dodgers fans friends, I would love to see the Dodgers win it. It's one of those, like, I wouldn't get broken up about it if they lost, but I'd be sad for my city. So let's say the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's pretty safe prediction.
Yeah. That's a non-committal thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair enough. No, that's basically where you are. And NFL, I really don't know too much about NFL. I find it, I've got my notes here, a bit of a frustrating sport to watch because it's so stop and start, and I can't really get into it. But
Yeah.
I've got a few friends who love it. So it goes to London for a year, right? So they go and watch that. So it's getting bigger in the UK. I think it's the biggest growing sport for US sports, I think, for sure.
Yeah, they play 3 games in London every year.
Yeah.
Contractually, I think they're at least this is going to keep going for at least a few years. They play 2 games at Tottenham Stadium and then one at Wembley
Mm.
every year. And the game at Wembley always involves the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is
Right.
interesting. I think because the owner has some sort of tie to I believe he's British and has some sort of tie to London in some fashion. So I don't quote me on that. But yeah, like even if you're don't know much about the NFL, I'm sure you know that one of the players in the NFL is dating Taylor Swift, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. We all know that. Yeah. And he
That's
won. He won as
that's
well.
right. That's one of those, like, moments where, like, the NFL has recognized that they have something where they can tap into, people who wouldn't normally care about it and, like,
Yeah.
milk for all it's worth. So it's fun. And yeah, it also helps that guy, it plays for the team that has won 3 championships in a 5-year span or whatever it is. So
That is Patrick Mahomes, isn't it?
no, it's Travis Kelce, the tight end. Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean the quarterback who plays for his team.
Yeah, the
Yeah, yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs.
I know that because he's like he's like the quarterback's star player, right? So I think if you don't know much about NFL, you might know some quarterbacks. Tom Brady's an example, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I know Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I know him, and obviously Travis.
Definitely revolves around the quarterback. So, it helps that they have a star quarterback and everything like that. It's hard to bet against the Chiefs again this year. They're probably going to be, like, one of the top teams again. But then again, I don't know. I don't believe an NFL team has ever won 3 straight Super Bowls. So I'm pretty sure that hasn't happened. So there's a chance that they'll stumble. I mean, there are a lot of, like, teams that, just like when the Patriots were super dominant, there are a lot of teams that are really good. They just kept running up against the Patriots all the time. So you get there are a handful of teams that keep running up against the Chiefs, like the Buffalo Bills have contenders the last few years. The Baltimore Ravens. As a Chargers fan, they hired a new coach, Jim Harbaugh, from who just won a national championship at Michigan. So like, people are kind of excited for that, but I don't expect them to be actual contenders for a couple years.
Right.
I think they will eventually, but probably this year's probably a little too much to expect. The expectations probably probably shouldn't get our hopes too high up about that. So yeah, I think it'll be somebody new. Like, we'll see who. 49ers have been strong too, but I think it's one of those, like, a team will come out of nowhere. Back when the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl, you can kind of say they not really came out of nowhere because they were contenders for a couple years before that, but, like, when they won the first time, that was their first championship in 50 years. And so, like,
Oh, right. Yeah.
we didn't like, okay, well, that's cool that that team broke their drought and won. And then 5 years later, like, Chiefs again. God, jeez, so
It's now a dynasty.
yeah, it's funny
Like,
how,
it's funny how that term gets brought up, especially in NBA. Like they start saying, "Oh, is this team a dynasty?" And they're not even won a championship yet. Like you got to win
yeah,
one first, right? So this Celtics team, for example, it might be like the Chiefs, right? They've won it for the first. I know it's been slightly less time, but like they won one. So are they now going to be a dynasty like the Chiefs, where they're going to win 3 or 4 more?
yeah,
Like they're like the Warriors, I guess, in the NBA.
yeah, for sure, like them too. Like the Warriors are the same, like same thing where like when they first won, like, oh, that's awesome. They won, for the first time in however many years. That's great that they broke that drought. And then 4 years later, like, God, I'm tired of seeing the Warriors win all the time.
There you go. Yeah, that's the nature of football. Same in football. I think that's why Manchester United. It's weird in football, right? We'll come to football next as well. In UK, in the Premier League, Manchester United are not liked, right? A lot, especially by my generation, because we grew up with them winning everything. But if you spoke to our parents' generation to football, they wouldn't like Liverpool because they won everything back in then, right? But I don't have a strong opinion on Liverpool, really, because they've not really been in it since I've been alive, really. And now, I guess, if you're a newer generation, you probably don't like Man City because they're winning all the time. So it's weird how these different generations have different thoughts on teams.
Yeah.
There you go. So that comes to football. Are you watching Euro 2024 in Germany at the minute? Because I guess the games are quite nice for us on the West Coast. They're sort of early morning going into lunchtime. So have you been watching?
Yeah. Watched quite a few of them.
And what are your thoughts so far?
Interesting. Like, it feels like England has been underperforming, even though they won the group. Like, which is one of those, you see that's how high the expectations are, right?
Yeah.
Hey, they got the job done. They won the group, right? But like, but 2 draws, like, I'm sure people are pretty disappointed about that.
Not happy.
Spain has looked pretty strong so far from what I've seen. That Italy match where they scored a goal in the final second was probably my favorite moment of the tournament so far, because that was just like, is the term buzzer beater in soccer, but like that was.
Yeah, I mean, that was literally the last kick of the game. I think you blew for the whistle like as soon as they started, right? But there was that minute in that game when Modric missed the penalty for Croatia. So a really good save from the Italian keeper, and then there's a bit of play, a bit of chaotic play, and then he scored a rebound, which he never does. Like Modric never scores in the box. This is not his game, but somehow, for some reason, he's there in his box. Ball comes in, gets rebounded to him. A real tough finish into the top corner, because Donnarumma in Italy goal was massive, right? He's like 6'5" or 6 or something. He's huge. And that minute of football was like, I think, arguably the best of the tournament so far. Like 2 colossal players. And and it ended with just the most dramatic, classic Italy, I think. Yeah, like Italy, they got that in them. That's what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know enough about the whole World Cup qualifying thing to understand why Italy hasn't qualified for the last 2 World Cups, but won the last Euro, and now has probably a pretty good shot to win this one. Like, I don't know enough about that to understand that, but it seems wild to me that that's possible.
Yeah, because you go through qualifying periods, right? And sometimes you just might come up against a playoff game. You finish second in your group and you go for a playoff to get to the World Cup. You might just come against someone who defends well, goes to penalties and lose, right? It's a bit like your baseball analogy. You could be pretty decent in that sort of like year and a half in that qualifying period of time. You might finish second because there's an unbelievable team finishing first. So the Euros example would be England finished top of that group. That's why they went to the Euros, and then Italy had to go through a playoffs to get to the Euros, right?
Yeah.
But then you could just come up against someone who's just inspired on a day. It's just all that one-off game to get through, and sometimes doesn't go your way. Which can happen in actual tournaments as well when it goes to penalty shootouts to win the whole thing, right? It's quite brutal. Like England, for example, my team lost to Italy last time on penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone can take a penalty, so it's just a matter of luck.
Yeah.
Very brutal.
But it does seem like, I do feel like it's this tournament is up for grabs, that there's maybe 4 or 5 teams that can like truly say they have a shot at winning it.
Yeah, I think for me, I've got before the tournament starts, because you obviously have your team before, because it's based on previous form players. I said France because I do think they've got the best squad. But if you're basing it on how well teams have played, so far. I mean, France finished second in the group, so I can't say France really any longer. England, who are probably my second favourites, are not anymore because they've been awful. I would probably plump for someone a bit underrated, which I didn't really consider at the start. I'd probably go for someone like Spain now because they just look so comfortable. And it's a bit of a cop-out to say Spain because they won 3 games and it's like obvious choice, but they haven't really looked troubled. And I think Germany with home advantage could come to the fore as well. But I don't know if you've seen from today, I don't know if you've seen the way it works is that you have 2 sides of the draw that goes to the final, right? And one side is really heavy with like all the big teams. Like it's lopsided with pretty much everyone, Germany, France, Spain, Portugal on the same side. So England's on the other side. And now like, we're awful, but we've got like the easiest side.
Right.
We should get to the final, but by the way we're playing, no chance.
What do you think that is? Because I know I've been reading about how like there's all this criticism on Southgate and like I mean is it tactics? Is he using his players correctly? Like what's your thought on why?
Both of those things. Yeah. So I mean everyone's got an opinion, right? Everyone's a pundit at home, but there's a combination of things. He's always been a bit negative as a manager because he's a defender back in his playing days, right? So there's another ex-footballer who made a good point that he's from the age of 8 until now, he's always done defensive style tactics, right? Because he's a defender. It's safety first. And you can't really argue with that with the results because we've only conceded 1 goal. So defensively, we've been pretty good, but offensively, awful. So like trying to fit players in their best position. We're in this weird position where we've got a load of good players sort of in the same position and you can't quite fit them in. Just doesn't gel. I don't think we've ever had that before. And like you got Phil Foden from Man City and Bellingham from Real Madrid that both had unbelievable seasons, but they both play the same position effectively.
Yeah.
So unless you drop one, which is a big call, what are you going to do? You're going to try and fit them in the teams. It hasn't really worked defensively. The problem is we play pretty lowly teams in terms of rankings in our group and we've not scored. Well, we scored 1. That was the first 20 minutes of the first game, so we're not really doing that well. I guess the upside is it can only get better, but we'll see on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, don't know. I think he'll go after this tournament. I think there's enough people who don't want him there anymore. Whether he wins or not, I think he'll be going.
So even if he wins, huh?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very brutal, but there you go.
It sounds like just I've been reading so much about the criticism. And he's been defiant too, like seems like trying to tune it out.
Yeah, it's a tough one because from his point of view and the way he is as a football manager and a player, they've done all right because they haven't conceded anything. Defensively pretty solid. But for the rest of the people who recognise the talent going forward is great, not scored any goals. So like, it's like, which side are you? I mean, I guess if you're, I don't know. I actually don't know which way is better. You'd rather not obviously concede goals. So that means you're going to be at least going to penalties in the games now, right? You're going to be having a chance to go through. If you're scoring 4 goals and conceding 3, I think people would be a bit worried, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think we'll win it though. I think it'll be, like I said, Spain or Germany. And France got Mbappe, so obviously they can win it because he's got the best player in the world. But, okay. And have you been watching or taking notice of Copa America? That's kind of kicked off at the same time.
Yeah, I've been following that a little bit also. Yeah, it seems like I can't say I know that much about some of the lesser countries, or at least not lesser, but more, all the attention's on Messi and Argentina, and Brazil seems to have like a pretty young team. And they didn't, they drew Costa Rica yesterday, which sounded like a real disappointment.
Sound like England. Yeah.
But I was just interested to see how the U.S. does because, I know, I don't think they'll like win by any means, but I think a strong showing there will like kind of, because on paper it seems like that team is really improved, and even though they brought back their manager, which I think most fans weren't happy with, but it just seems like from a talent standpoint that the U.S. has more talent now than almost at any point in the whole. So it'll be interesting to see how they do against strong competition. They've got Uruguay in their group, so how they play against them. It's hard at this point to say like, Argentina won the last one. They won the last World Cup, so like they still
Probably
have
favourites.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think most of that squad that won the World Cup, most of them are back. So like, it's hard to not to bet against them, or hard to bet against them, I should say.
Yeah, I think they've got to be favourites. I hope Messi and the Argentine team, which is a bit weird for an Englishman saying it because we are slightly rivals, I think, but hopefully they make it to the World Cup in 2026. I think that could be, I wonder if Messi's got in his mind that that might be his last hurrah because he'll be 39 at that point. I think he could still do a job up until that point. And I don't think, well, it's been a very long time since anyone won World Cups back to back, right? So another bit of history he could make there if he wanted to. He never commits, does he? He always says, oh, we'll see how it goes. But I think he must, in his mind, know, right? And I think he will, because I think he just is in a much easier league now to not push himself too hard. But then the difficulty is you get to like the top games in the World Cup, they are really like high level, right? So I wonder if he can raise it. But I think for Copa America, if they don't win it, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we just seem to see. I mean, Ronaldo's 39, right? And
Yes.
I feel like from what I've seen, he's looked pretty good.
Yeah. Desperate to score, isn't he? Desperate to score.
Yeah, and so they talk about the rivalry between those two. Like, I'm sure you wonder if Messi has it in his mind. Well, if Ronaldo's doing it, then I got to do it. Like at 30.
Yeah. He's 2 years younger as well, Messi, right? So yeah, I do wonder how much that has a part in it for each of them.
I'm sure they'll definitely say no. That means nothing. But
I think for Ronaldo, I mean, he's going to be the highest scoring person ever, I think, because he's just quite far ahead. But I think Messi winning the World Cup probably irks him quite a bit. So I think he's probably just wishing he gets to another World Cup in 2 years' time, and then hopefully he can win it with Portugal. Because otherwise, if he doesn't, then he's always going to have the asterisk next to his name because everyone's going to say, well, Messi won the World Cup and he pretty much carried Argentina, right? I mean, if there's a debate about who's the best, I don't think there is any debate at the minute because Messi's got that World Cup under his belt, which I can't believe still, actually. Because that Argentinian team, they're decent. They've only lost like 3 in 40 games, right? But it is his team. Whereas Portugal are a much better team individually, right? In terms of the players, like they're much stronger.
yeah,
We'll see.
yeah, definitely excited. I mean, you hope that 2 years from now, because the World Cup is here.
Yeah.
Definitely try to go to a few of those matches. This generation, like talent, you just want to see the best players and like having a chance to soccer's kind of having its moment in the US, like, or recognizing, and Messi coming to MLS is like kind of a watershed moment too. Like it's legitimized MLS is like this is actually like a league that international stars want to play in. So it's legitimizing the sport for, I think, a lot of American sports fans. And now when the World Cup comes, I think the interest will have built up to where it's higher than ever. And it would be a letdown if Messi at that point says, "No, I'm not going to play in that." Like,
Quite surprising, right? Yeah. I'll be very surprised. He just needs to keep playing. He's not going to move anywhere. He's in the same country.
Right.
He's getting used to the conditions, and I assume he's learned a bit of the language, but that's not really a big thing. But I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. I guess the only thing that could happen is a bad injury, but I can't. He's never been injured in his career, really. I mean, he's never had it. I don't think he's that type of player. So, yeah, I really hope we get to see him one last time at a World Cup. I think what was key for him going to MLS is has always had the reputation, especially back home, he's like a money earner, right? You go to earn money at the end of your career, but he arrived as the best player in the world officially because he was awarded it, and a world champion. I mean, you can't get any higher than that. So that's good for the MLS because that does legitimize the league. Unlike probably a bit like Saudi Arabia, where there's paying so much money that people go in there to take a payday, right?
Right.
But there you go. Yeah, hopefully Messi will be there in 2026. I think he will, and I think that'll be his last tournament, and he might retire after that.
Yeah.
But there you go. I've got we talked Premier League quite a bit, so just a quick question: who's going to win it next year?
I would be on the side of those who like, Man City again. I don't want to see them win again. It was a great race this year with Liverpool and Arsenal being in it.
Yeah.
On the subject of like fandom, I always have thought to myself ever since I started following, I was like, maybe I'm going to start actually rooting for one of these teams, but
Mm.
it starts to happen. I want it to happen organically because like, and it hasn't really happened yet. So, I was like, okay, well, the first team I see live will be the team I start following. That turned out to be Tottenham.
Mm.
Really, like, I follow them, but like not to the point where like I'm a huge fan. So as of today, I am still open. So I do
Ah.
not have a club that I support. Um, but I think like it would be nice to see somebody new emerge this next year. It's just funny how like the last 2 or 3 seasons, always there's always Arsenal gets off to a super strong start, and like okay, someone's gonna break through, and then at some point one of them stumbles, and there's Man City right there, like ready to
Wait.
take over. So, like, and it's happened like that the last couple of years it seems, and like you can't ever let up.
Yeah, no.
So
Yeah.
we'll see if Arsenal breaks through. Like it feels like they're on the verge of something. No, it's uh depending on if any players come and go. I don't know that it's hard to bet against Man City, right? Like
Yeah, I can't see anyone else. Yeah. Just, I don't think they'll not win it until Guardiola leaves, right? So I think
yeah,
another pundit, actually the same pundit who was talking about, what I said a minute ago about, what was he talking about? Okay. But the same pundit, also said that Man City is just timing, right? If Arsenal last year were against just Liverpool, they would have won the league, right? Or a Man City team with not having Guardiola in charge, they probably wouldn't have won the league. They got quite a lot of points, but they're just up against the best manager and the best team. It's just bad timing. So yeah, he's got 1 year left on his contract, so he's talked about leaving. So maybe it's his last season. I'm not sure. Yeah, but Man City for sure. I mean, Ipswich, my team, we play Liverpool at home and Man City away in our first 2 games. I mean,
oh really? Wow, that was kind of them.
that's a backlash into the Premier League for the first time in 20 plus years, isn't it?
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I can't see anything else other than defeats, but it'd be good to get back into it and get them out of the way early. You don't want those 2 games at the end of the season if you need a point, right? So yeah, get them out of the way. Okay, and to kind of finish the episode, can you talk about your brand, Itinerant Fan, about what the website offers, how it helps people with travel and sports, and maybe like the website address and social media? If you could tell people that, that'd be quite cool.
yeah, for sure. So my site is Itinerant Fan. The URL is Itinerant Fan, ITINERANTFAN.com. Same handles on social media, mainly on Instagram, but been trying to get into this TikTok thing, but I'm just not a cool kid, so like to really get into that game. But yeah, I think it's mainly about like inspiration. Like I think there are a lot of fans out there who that they see their favorite teams at home, but don't necessarily they probably want to, but don't for whatever reason don't get out there to see their teams on the road. And I try to provide inspiration to people to get out and do that trip that they've been wanting to do. Well, and the motivation can start with wanting to see my favorite team play
Mm.
some that's not, but I also wanted to, as we talked about earlier, like it be sort of a jumping off point to say, okay, well, there's a city I haven't actually been to that I want to really see, whether that's something like Chicago or something that's fairly I don't know what the word is, normal as a like tour you go see, or something like super exotic. My NFL team got sent to play in London or Brazil, or like my NHL team got sent to play in Sweden or Czech Republic. Um, like why not go see them play? And so a lot of it is about providing that sort of inspiration through my own experiences. Like I mentioned, I've gone to see soccer in England. I've gone to see the NFL in Mexico City. I've gone to see the Olympics, seen baseball in Japan, and like all those were like transformative experiences. And so that's what I try to convey to people and provide that inspiration. And at the same time, I write a lot of guides to different stadiums. I have guides to every stadium in the 4 major sports, and trying to provide like not just information about the stadium itself, but like the surrounding area, where a good place to eat before the game, good place to get a beer, how to get there. That's not driving, like public transportation, how you can get there, where it is in the city. If you're coming from the airport, how can you get there? That sort of thing. and just try to provide all this information as kind of a one-stop shop because you can Google all that stuff for sure.
Mm.
But have it in sort of a one-stop shop for, the entire experience of traveling to go see a game. So that's the type of inspiration I try to provide.
Awesome. And I'll put the links of all those things in the show notes so people click on those. And finally, for 2024, what have you got coming up? Any trips? Any sporting events?
The fall is going to be big for me because I'm trying to finish up my list of NFL stadiums. So I've got 2 or 3 trips planned already to see a few places. Mostly, so I'll probably keep it domestic for at least through the end of this calendar year, but hoping to again revisit Europe in 2025. I've been to, for example, I went to the problem with going to stadiums is you go visit a stadium, you experience it, and it's a wonderful experience. And then a year later, they totally redo the stadium, and now you're like, okay, well, it's not the same.
Yeah.
With that. But to that end, I went to Barcelona a couple years ago and saw a Barcelona match at the Camp Nou. So and now they're renovating it. So I want to see it post renovation for sure. And I did not see a Real Madrid match, but they did renovate that stadium, and it looks really cool. So maybe Spain is on the horizon for 2025. We'll see about that, but definitely European trip is on the docket. And then for family reasons, I'm looking potentially to go to Australia in 2025 also. So we'll see if I have the time or the money for all of that. But a lot of things on the wish list for 2025. So hopefully I get to all.
Great country, Australia, for sport and for travel. The sporting hub. Great city.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go before, so definitely kind of a bucket list. Want to check it off. Something to do. So yeah, really. If not 2025, then maybe soon after. But definitely high on the list.
Hope you make a cricket game in Australia. That'd be
yeah, totally.
That'd be my ask for you. Because they last 5 days, so at least go to one day, right, and just enjoy the experience.
Yeah, I have not been to an actual cricket match, so I have to. Whether that's in England or Australia or somewhere else, I got it.
But it is easier to get tickets in England, so I've actually not been many times in England because the tickets are just a nightmare to get. But Australia much easier. And also, there's 3 types of games, right? You've got the 2020 game, which is the World Cup's in USA right now. I think England just beat USA in the quarterfinals, so I think we're in the semi-finals now. And then you've got the 50-50 game, which is it's how many overs you bowl. It's a bit like an innings in baseball, right? So 2020 is 20 overs, lasts about 4 hours. A 50-50 game lasts a whole day. And then you've got a test match, which lasts 5 days. So they're normally between countries. I guess is what purists would call proper cricket. It's not just hitting the ball and hoping, right? It's a lot more tactical thinking, patience, demanding of the mentality of it, right? So, yeah, I've been to Australia twice to watch cricket. It's been pretty good fun. You'll need some money for Australia for sure. Okay, and got one final question before we wrap up. Tell me 3 favourite sporting occasions for you. Is there any moments that you've seen live that it looks unbelievable?
Yeah, definitely number 1 is that Olympic hockey game that I told you about. That's probably number 1. Let's see. 2 is probably I'm not sure if you know about the rivalry between USC and Notre Dame in football, but I went to one of the most famous games in that rivalry that is known. It's known as the Bush Push game because of the penultimate play, or the deciding play of that game was a running back named Reggie Bush pushing one of his teammates into the end zone for the winning touchdown. So I can say any college football fan will know what that game is. I can at least say I was at that game, a very historic game. And third would probably just be seeing a Barcelona match at the Camp Nou, because that was the first European stadium that I'd been to, and just all 100,000 fans being there. It was just a regular old match on a Sunday night, but just the whole. That was one of those, wow, I'm here in Barcelona watching one of the most famous teams in the world play in their home stadium. And that's you can't believe that you're there. And so that's probably on the list for me too.
Was that Messi or was that after him?
It was the season after Messi. I was so upset. Yeah, missed him. Yeah. So I've seen Ronaldo live, but I've not seen Messi. So I have to recognize that.
I'm the other way around. I've seen Messi, but not seen Ronaldo. Yeah. My best sporting event live ever is Messi scoring the World Cup in the Maracanã in Rio.
Oh, wow.
He scored for Argentina against Bosnia. And I was at the end, he scored he dribbled around a few players on the edge of the box and hit it. And I never heard noise like it. And people going nuts. And I was like, that end, that won't be beaten. Yeah. There you go.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Okay, Ed, it's been a great chat. It's quite unusual for my podcast about sport, but I've really enjoyed it. I thought I should probably do a sports podcast. But yeah, I really like hearing the relationship between sport and travel. I think it's quite a cool one to have. It's quite purposeful in terms of travel. You're right. When people go and see sporting events, there's a bit of a purpose there alongside travel, because travel sometimes can be a bit aimless. You just wander around, check things out, right? But a sporting event adds a bit of a thing to it to aim for. So cool way to travel. Done it plenty of times. Great to hear other people talk about their experiences, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate this. It was a ton of fun. I can't believe an hour and a half went by. Like,
I know.
How much fun it was. So
yeah, absolutely. Cheers, dude. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the podcast episode today. If you've been inspired by today's chat and want to book some travel, if you head to the show notes, you'll see some affiliate links below which help support this podcast. You'll find Skyscanner to book your flight. You'll find booking.com to book that accommodation. Want to stay in a super cool hostel? You'll see Hostelworld down there too. You'll find Revolut to get your travel card sorted. Click the GigSky link to get your eSIM ready for your trip. And more importantly, you'll find Safety Wing Insurance to get that travel insurance for your trip. There are many more to check out, so when you click that link and book your product, a small commission goes towards me and the Winging It Travel podcast. Thank you in advance and enjoy your travels.